horror, revenge, almost porn kind of thing, like you remember movies from the 70s, right?
That is
so
not, though. I'm sorry, I have to wrap it up, Tammy, but that is the Gayborhood. New episodes on Fridays. Go to DallasVoice.com. We're going to see Tammy back here in a couple weeks. Thank you for being with us, Tammy.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely.
Y'all have a great day.
Up next on WCPT 820 is Choose Views with Richard Chu on AM 950 Radio. It's the Matt McNeil Show. Stay tuned after that for Native Roots Radio. Connect with us on Blue Sky. We're at thegailyshow.org on Blue Sky. And until tomorrow, keep it queer, America.
Keep it queer.
Hi, I'm Marcel Spears. Keeping our global neighborhood safe is a tough job, one made just a bit safer with the help of America's brave military dogs. These dogs, who often take the same risks and make the same sacrifices as our human warriors, keep our troops safe by sniffing out bombs and IEDs, locating enemy positions, and bringing a sense of comfort and home to an almost unimaginable circumstance. Yet, when these brave canine heroes retire, they're not always given the same treatment as our military VIPs, and are too often left overseas. American Humane works to bring home these valiant dogs and reunite them with the people who mean the most to them, their handlers, so they can enjoy happy, healthy, well-deserved retirements. To learn how you can help America's four-footed heroes, visit AmericanHumane.org.
Being blind doesn't always look how others may think.
Retinitis pigmentosa aimed to overwhelm my family.
It tried to cut me down.
I know where to find support and where I can be seen.
Innovative research, educational resources, supportive community. The Foundation Fighting Blindness is leading the charge in finding treatments and cures for blinding diseases. Learn more at fightingblindness.org. A public service message from the Foundation Fighting Blindness.
You took the first step and quit smoking, but even former smokers may still be at risk for lung cancer. That's why SaveByTheScan.org wants you to know about a new low-dose CT scan that can detect lung cancer early. It takes only 60 seconds and could save your life. You took the first step, now take the next. Visit SaveByTheScan.org for a simple quiz to see if you're eligible and talk to your doctor about screening. SaveByTheScan.org is brought to you by the American Lung Association's Lung Force Initiative and the Ad Council.
Listen to the Tom Hartman radio program every weekday from 11 to 2 right here on WCPT 820, where facts matter.
AP News, I'm Marcela Sanchez. A stunning upset for Andrew Cuomo in the New York City primary for mayor. AP correspondent Donna Warder reports.
33-year-old Democratic Socialist Zohran Mamdani has beaten Andrew Cuomo in New York City's Democratic primary for mayor.
My friends, we have done it.
The race's ultimate outcome will still be decided by a ranked choice count.
I spoke with Andrew Cuomo about the need to bring this city together as he called me to concede the race.
Cuomo, the former New York governor, had been the front runner throughout the race, and it was his comeback bid from a sexual harassment scandal. Current Mayor Eric Adams is running as an independent in the general election. I'm Donna Warder.
The ceasefire between Israel and Iran appears to be holding after a rocky start. President Trump, who helped negotiate the deal, told reporters at the NATO summit in the Netherlands.
Israel came back yesterday. I was so proud of them. Because they came back, they went out because they felt there was a violation, and technically they were right, but it just wouldn't have worked out very well. And they brought the planes back. They had gone on to another journey because there was a little bit of a violation, and I said, you got to get them back. And they came back, and it was a great thing, and it's going very well.
Iran has insisted it will not give up its nuclear program. Today, the Iranian parliament agreed to fast-track a proposal that would stop the country's cooperation with the International Atomic Energy Agency. And India, Poland, and Hungary launched their first astronauts in more than 40 years. The three men, along with the U.S.'s Peggy Whitson, a retired astronaut, are on a private flight set to arrive next morning to the International Space Station. This is AP News. AP correspondent Ben Thomas reports global vaccination efforts have stalled.
A new analysis of vaccination trends finds global efforts to protect children against diseases like measles, polio, and tuberculosis have stalled since 2010, leaving millions vulnerable to deadly infections. Immunization against measles in particular has dropped in 100 countries, including rich ones like the U.S. that had previously eliminated it. But more than half of the world's unvaccinated children live in just 8 countries, mostly in Africa. And health experts warn the U.S. freeze on humanitarian aid could further undermine vaccination efforts, leading to new epidemics of preventable diseases. The findings were published in the journal Lancet. I'm Ben Thomas.
Visit us at apnews.com for all the day's news. I'm Marcela Sanchez.
This is 820 AM, WCPT Willow Springs, and streaming worldwide at WCPT820.com. We are Chicago's progressive talk, where facts matter. Now, your WCPT 820 weather update.
From the Weatherology Weather Center, I'm meteorologist Jennifer Wojcicki. We'll see a few scattered showers and thunderstorms at times here for today with cloudy skies, a high in the mid-80s. Winds out of the northeast around 5 to 10 miles per hour. Then for tonight, a slight chance for showers and storms, mostly cloudy, low 72. Thursday, another chance for rain and thunderstorms, blend of clouds and sunshine develops, high of 93. Friday, chance for rain and storms, a high around 88. That's your latest Chicago weather update.
Currently, it's 73. William is one of millions of Americans who uses GoodRx to save on the cost of their prescriptions.
My oldest daughter, Camilla, 2 days old, she had to have open heart surgery. All of a sudden, she's on 5 different medications. It adds up at the end of the month. Me and the pharmacist got so tight. She said, GoodRx save you a lot of money. Saving that extra $200-300 a month. We're able to do all these extra activities, so it puts less stress on our household, and it puts less stress on our pockets.
Download the free app or visit GoodRx.com and start saving today. GoodRx user compensated for their time. GoodRx is not insurance, but can be used instead of insurance.
You're listening to WCPT 820, because facts matter.
Welcome to Choose Views with Richard Chew. Get ready to dive into a world of insightful conversations and thought-provoking discussions.
As progressives, our job is to have an all-inclusive, full-on assault with all of our players.
A show that focuses on moving our political, social, economic, gender, and cultural conversation forward.
And all of our players means all of our players.
It's Choose Views. And now, here's your host, Richard Chew.
Good Wednesday morning, progressives, and welcome to the June 25th, 2025 edition of Choose Views, 773-763-9278, Facebook Live, TuneIn Radio, YouTube, and, of course, iHeartRadio. Email me at richard@wcpt820.com. I think I got some emails answered yesterday, so thank you guys for being patient. Catch me on Substack when we post try to get an article posted in there every week or so. And of course, all of our shows you can catch by subscribing to our WCPT podcast on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. Great places to go. For what? Choose Views, short versions and long version. Joan Esposito, live, local, and progressive. Driving it home with Patty Vasquez. Why would you be any other place? The Big Picture with Edwin Eisendrath. Out Chicago, and our other shows and interviews. So make your way over to heartlandsignal.com, our digital platform. We have a clip that we're going to bring you after the first break from our Heartland Signal platform. Today's guest, because we're going to be busy, y'all. 6:30, Don Huckelbridge will be here talking about rights and for paid leave, which is going to be a really important topic. Maggie O'Keefe, one of our contributors here at WCPT in Heartland, will be bringing us some information on Dobbs and a opinion piece that she just posted on our site. Kurt Mullett from Hoosier Blue 63 in the 7 o'clock hour. It's Wednesday, y'all. And Professor Andrew Seligsohn, who I call Doc, will be with us talking about public agenda in the 7:30 hour. So we're busy this morning with blessings and thankful for that. But right now, check this out, progressives.
I'm not calling Benjamin Netanyahu a liar, but if you've been saying something for 20, 30 years and it hasn't come to fruition, does that mean that you're lying about it? You tell me. Watch this.
If not stopped, Iran could produce a nuclear weapon in a very short time. It could be a year. It could be within a few months.
They have the wherewithal, the stored up, preserved knowledge
to make a bomb very quickly if they wanted to do it.
Iran is so dangerous. Weeks away from having the fissile material for an entire arsenal of nuclear bombs.
They're very close. They're 6 months away from being about 90% of having the enriched uranium for an atom bomb.
Iran is gearing up to produce 25 bombs, atomic bombs a year, 250 bombs in a decade.
Ladies and gentlemen, time is running out.
Iran will be capable of producing alone, without importing anything, nuclear bombs within 3 to 5 years.
Are American leaders listening to this? Is Donald Trump listening to this? And the big question is, are we being played by Benjamin Netanyahu?
No, that was Don Lemon who was narrating that, and I love the music in that piece. No, Don, we're not being played, but Donald Trump certainly got played, and his minion got played, just in similar fashion to how Bush did. Some might say Bush didn't get played. Bush was with intent because of his cabinet and the folks that were there with him. But yeah, I mean that the point of this is, irrespective of this so-called ceasefire and all the other things that are, still being speculated and what was destroyed and what wasn't destroyed. Here's the thing that we have to focus on and every now and again, it's easy to get off into the weeds and we get caught up in talking about this fool. But I think the responsibility that comes with what comes with that is a responsibility of identifying things that we need to be aware of, like Michelle Peltier talked about yesterday. At the same time, the other side of that sword, my language, is that we stay focused on messing these punks up. I know you guys would like that one. What did Richard just say? Seriously, breaking their momentum so that we get back on track to doing the things that we know are better for our country. Like Michelle said yesterday, we have to be hopeful. We have to be inspired. We have to be looking forward. And that to me is why, we inevitably going to talk about this, and we're going to force their hand. We're going to push our elected officials and make it clear that this is unacceptable and we have to push back. Now, the video, the clip, and I can send it to you guys if you'd like it. Just, as always, send me an email and I'll do my best to get it to you as quickly as I can. But here's the rub on this. This goes back to 1996. That's why the audio quality and the sound changed. When you see the video part of it, it'll make you chuckle, but it'll also should tick you off and inspire you to say, you know what? Be darned this so-called ceasefire. This wasn't our fight specifically. Netanyahu got what he wanted, and that was to get the United States in a vulnerable position. And now, so there's so much commentary behind, Donald. You saw his decision to, as he's walking to Marine One, I believe it was, to spout out that neither of these countries know what the blank they're doing. Really? Then why in the heck did we spend our resources trying to help them figure it out? I thought we weren't going to be the country that was going to be taking assault to places that didn't attack us. So, did we get played, America? No. For those of us who paid attention, we didn't get played. 77 million plus said no. The other X million said yes. Y'all, those got played, but not the 77 million. And those who sat on the sideline, I don't know if you got played or if you just got lazy. But that being said, we're going to move forward and keep this pressure on our elected representatives. As it relates to this and anything else that's going on in Washington, make sure you're calling your senators. It works because, as you heard, Senate Democrats have thrown a monkey wrench in the provision to ignore the courts. That's a big A deal. Call your senators, call your governors and your lieutenant governors, and let them know to stand strong. And you guys, speaking of governors, you guys may have heard the news, or if not, I'll mention it to you as the show goes on today. Hopefully we can squeeze it in. Call your AGs, let them know we're here. We're here to fight. We're here to stay focused, but we're here to fight. Not going to, the garbage is not allowed. The switchboard, again, try to get this to you every couple of days, 202-224-3121. And here's what you can do. You heard yesterday, when we had Anna Mercado on, she talked about the importance of calling and sending. So many of us are saying this, not the same thing, but similar sentiment of doing something and being involved. Everybody that we have on today is a person that's involved, and you can be too. But going back to the calling the switchboard, if that's not your thing and you don't want to call, as I've said before, then do something. Get involved with an organization. Send out cards, send out letters, whatever. Because it's working when we make these calls. They note this. They are aware of it. Call a Republican senator and or member of the House of Representatives. Okay? Because that's empowering to you. And I have to say it every day or every opportunity that I can or every day that is in my notes. Call the number. Okay? Call it and let them know you are not satisfied, you're not happy with this, that it is unacceptable, and that they have to push back at every corner, every opportunity. And there's opportunities every day for the federally, the nationally elected officials. And that's why I include in this, call your governors and your lieutenant governors and your AGs. They appreciate the phone call as well. I mean, those that are in blue states or blue-led states in terms of the governors and the lieutenant governors and AGs. They appreciate you contacting them to let them know that you got their back. And sometimes that phone call, those messages that you leave, those cards that you send, those communications to their sites, when they look at those, and I know this from people, from them having told me this, that it makes a big deal. When we've had Lieutenant Governor Juliana Stratton on, she's always said it means so much that people reach out to her and her office. When we've had representatives on, they've said the same thing. So just stay in the game, y'all. Please stay in the game. All right, a couple quick Choose Views news items. We'll take a quick break. When we come back, we've got a couple more clips we want to hit you with before we get to our guest. All right, so, Henry, they say that Israel and Iran have reached a tenuous truce. World leaders are expressing, quote, cautious optimism that a fragile ceasefire between Iran and Israel will hold. A truce between the two nations was announced overnight, but Israel and Iran soon thereafter accused each other of violating the terms of the deal. Still, Donald Trump said that a ceasefire is in effect and warned both nations to abstain from further hostility. Shut up, Donald. U.S. home price growth cools. We saw this coming. Price growth decelerated in April and again in May to the slowest pace in almost 2 years, as elevated mortgage rates and weak affordability pushed would-be buyers to the sidelines. Prices climbed 2.7% from a year earlier, which is the slowest rate of growth since the summer of 2023, according to the S&P CoreLogic Case Shiller Index. That compared to the pace of 3.4% in the prior month. Okay, student loan collection intensifies. Leave them alone, Trump and your crazy government minions, cabinet. The federal government is stepping up efforts to collect on student loans, and as many as 2 million borrowers could have their wages garnished next month if they move into default, according to the Wall Street Journal. Another 3 million could default by September. The Education Department has already threatened to withhold tax refunds from delinquent borrowers, and this summer it will begin deducting as much as 15% from paychecks. There remains roughly $1.6 trillion in outstanding student debt, and defaults are already affecting credit scores. Why don't we see what members of the cabinet owe the government or their state money before we start taking money from students who are trying to find their way? Why don't we do that? How about shifting that dynamic? But see, many of the folks who have a problem with this are the same people who voted for it, meaning college debt being relieved. All right, Kroger to close about 5% of their stores. The food giant Kroger is planning to close about 5% of its stores over the next 18 months. Employees at the 60 or so affected locations will be offered roles at nearby stores, according to the company. Kroger has seen a boost in recent months as more Americans eat meals at home. But some stores are still not delivering the sustainable results that are needed, according to the interim CEO, Ron Sargent. And of course, this is one of the companies that kept it quiet that they were artificially keeping prices up during the pandemic. Y'all remember that? We reported it here that Kroger was one of the companies that was doing in the grocery business. I don't know. Let's take a quick break, Henry. 773-763-9278. This is Choose Views, and we'll be right back.
WCPT 20th Anniversary Replay 2023.
Welcome to the WCPT AM 820 Mayoral Forum. We are so glad all the candidates are here. Commissioner Johnson, you clearly have the support of the Chicago Teachers Union, endorsements, money from them. How are you going to balance those ties with the obligation to oversee CPS as mayor?
Well, again, no one has better incentive on this stage for the city of Chicago to work, particularly its public schools, than someone who was actually sending their children to the Chicago public schools. I think I'll be the first mayor in recent history to actually have children in public schools. Here's the second thing, elected representative school board. We fought for it. We have it. We're going to be negotiating not just with an elected representative school board, the city council, the state of Illinois, the Congress. So it's going to take all of us because the politics of old has left us behind.
Listening to WCPT 820 because facts matter.
You're listening to WCPT 820 because facts matter.
You're listening to Choose Views with Richard Chew on WCPT 820, Chicago's Progressive Talk.
Hey, Progressives, welcome back to the show. Today, live on Live Local and Progressive, Joan Esposito will be talking to Kat Tenbarge, author of Spitfire Newsletter. Laura Rodriguez, Vice President of Government Affairs at the Center for American Progress Action Fund. Shawana Moore, Associate Professor in the Nell Hogston Woodruff School of Nursing at Emory University. And Missouri Democratic House Minority Leader Ashley Awney will be with Joan today, Live Local and Progressive, 2 to 5 Central here on WCPT, Chicago's Progressive Talk for 20 years. And then tonight, and tomorrow, I guess I should say tonight on Driving Home with Patty Vasquez, Dwayne Kennedy will be in for Patty. So there you go, Driving It Home with Patty Vasquez. Dwayne Kennedy sitting in for her. Weekdays 5 to 7 p.m. Central here on WCPT, AM 820, Heartland Signal, TuneIn Radio, YouTube, and Facebook. Tomorrow, you guys are definitely going to tune in on our show. We'll be joined by Congressman Danny Davis. And I'll also have an interview that we recorded with Mayor of Culver City, Mayor Dan O'Brien, who spoke to me from the 93rd Annual United States Conference of Mayors. So I'm looking forward to that. And make your way over to the Goodman Theater. Celebrate Pride Month with the Goodman Theater. They're hosting Pride Night out on June 27th at 6 p.m. before the 7:30 performance of What? The Color Purple. Gather in the Goodman lobby with the special guest DJ and get discounted drinks and tickets to the show. Tickets are available at goodmantheater.org/pride. So make your way there. All right, guys. It's Pride Month, and it's also, unfortunately, I don't know if the word I want to use is anniversary, but it's certainly the acknowledgement of the 3-year destruction of the rights for women to have some autonomy of their body and women's reproductive rights. In our 6:30 segment, we'll be talking with a couple of different women, directly and indirectly on that on that subject matter regarding women's health care, women's reproductive rights, Dobbs, and paid leave. But we have this clip that I want you guys to hear. The audio is it's okay, but just listen carefully. Henry's looking at me like, man, why'd you send me this? Dude, just listen carefully. And I'll talk about it on the back end before we go to the next break. But we've got a clip from Michigan State Rep Carl Bonack that I want you guys to hear.
So at your last coffee hour in Michigan Township, we kind of talked a little bit about the Planned Parenthood closing Marquette and kind of how we're in a healthcare desert now. You said that you would look into funding for services and to try and help supplement that closure. So there are right now people trying to make clinics. And so my question is, one is, do you support reproductive freedom?
It's already been decided in the state legislature.
And I know
and that's not something that I want to die on.
Well, I'm not asking you to die on. I'm just saying, do you support reproductive freedom for your constituents? And will you support getting funding to ensure that your constituents actually have access to it? And it's a yes or no question. Like, do you support it? Okay.
No, if you're talking about abortion, I'm not going to support an abortion clinic. Personally, I wouldn't.
Well, so there's a lot of things that they actually give it. There's sexual assault screenings, there's pre-cancer screenings.
That's fine.
Okay.
Something like that.
Contraceptive?
Yeah, definitely.
Sex education, I mean, the list goes on.
As long as it's appropriate sex education, yes.
What is appropriate sex education?
In other words, age appropriate.
Okay.
That's
So at that point, then you don't support reproductive
I wouldn't. No, I don't. I don't support abortion.
Okay.
I support reproductive clinics.
Okay. So you don't support a woman's autonomy of her own body.
I don't.
Okay.
How awful is that? If you guys could hear that, it was a constituent asking Michigan State Rep Carl Bonak if he supported the right to choose. And, he says if it's abortion, no, I don't support abortion. I don't think we should be paying for it, et cetera, et cetera. It's kind of a standard Republican, not just federal. This is a state rep. This is not a federal rep, a member of Congress. And the person is asking him if you support women making their own health care decisions. And he said, I don't. So the follow-up question was, so you don't support a woman's autonomy over her own body? And Bonak says, I don't. So it ain't the Democrats, y'all, that are messing stuff up. We have to stay fired up and inspired to push our Democratic leaders to do better. But those are the guys. This is a 71-year-old guy that is, his mindset is he doesn't support. And he doesn't. Here's the thing. He's got his right, Henry, to not support. That's fine. Just don't get behind this dude. Just don't follow this dude. Just don't give him any credibility when it comes to this conversation. I mean, he's like oblivious to the fact of where we are and how many women's lives have been greatly altered. I don't want to use the word destroyed. It's not my business to say that, but greatly altered because of the Dobbs decision. But yet, we have people who want to follow this type of I don't know what you say other than just horrible way of looking at women. You don't support a woman's autonomy over her body. I wish the guy had, and he said, I don't. I wish that the constituent would have come back and with a question like, well, then who does have control over women's bodies? That would have been even great to try to pin them to the wall on that. But anyhow, I wanted you guys in this month that we're in with Pride, and this month that we're in, or this week that we're in, and these couple of days that we're in when it comes to the decision, which I call a horrible decision by the Supreme Court. They shouldn't even have taken the case. But we got 5 dudes who, their belief system, and they've said it, is not for women's autonomy. And we've got a woman on the Supreme Court. So 6 justices that believe that it is not a woman's right to have the autonomy and it should go back to the states, which is a bunch of garbage. Because we know what happens when it goes back to the states. If they're going to muck it up, which they're doing in many states that have done already in these past 3 years. But we're going to have opportunity to talk with Maggie O'Keefe about an opinion piece that she posted at Heartland Signal, which I'm looking forward to. And we're going to have an opportunity to talk with a woman who is a leading voice in the space of paid leave. And paid leave gets into the conversation. Dawn will probably tell me, Richard, no, it's not a peripheral thing. And I don't mean that in a non-informed way. But it is more in line with my dotted line theory, that we're all a dotted line. And I have to give my wife props on that. She's used that phrase with me for 20 years now. Dotted line. A woman's right to choose, a woman's bodily autonomy is tied to paid leave. family paid leave, but it's tied to paid leave because paid leave is not paid leave. People always think about that, Henry. I shouldn't say always, oftentimes, and the space of pregnancy and childbirth and care for the mother and the baby after that. But it's also when it comes to other medical circumstances, which is why Don won't have to correct me too hard with me saying it's a peripheral item. It's not, I don't mean it peripheral. It's one of the pieces of this conversation. So I'm looking forward to getting her expertise shared with you guys. We're going to take an early break because we got to try to get everybody in today, and I don't want to rush anybody because they got too much great stuff to say. So, Henry, let's take a quick break. When we come back, guys, we're going to be with one of the experts in the space of paid leave for all. That would be Dawn Huckelbridge. 773-763-9278 is a number, and we'll be right back.
I'm Ed Evans, CEO of Consumer Cellular. If you're over 50 and tired of your wireless bill getting higher and higher, there are 4 things to consider. 1, how much data are you really using? As we get older, we use less data on our wireless phone, but you're probably still paying for an unlimited plan that was designed for 20-somethings. 2, if you see "Get a phone on us," get your sneakers out and run the other way. No one is giving you a free phone. You are paying for that phone over time with an overpriced rate plan and a long-term commitment. 3, check the fine print on that $15 a month plan. It's probably an intro price that'll double or triple later. You might even have to pay for several months of service up front. Number 4, be aware of cable company wireless plans. Most of your usage will be on Wi-Fi instead of 5G, and your calls and battery life could suffer. Switch to Consumer Cellular and get the same fast, reliable, nationwide service without the big wireless bill. Our plans start at just $20 a month.
Call 1-888-FREEDOM or visit consumercellular.com/fax. Plans include $5 credit for auto pay and e-billing. See site for additional facts.
You're listening to WCPT 820. Here's the latest Chicago weather update.
From the Weatherology Weather Center, I'm meteorologist Jennifer Wojcicki. We'll see a few scattered showers and thunderstorms at times here for today with cloudy skies, a high in the mid-80s. Winds out of the northeast around 5 to 10 miles per hour. Then for tonight, a slight chance for showers and storms, mostly cloudy, low of 72. Thursday, another chance for rain and thunderstorms. Blend of clouds and sunshine develops, high of 93. Friday, chance for rain and storms, a high around 88. That's your latest Chicago weather update. Currently, it's 73.
Alexa, play WCPT.
WCPT from TuneIn.
It's Choose View with Richard Chew on WCPT 820, where facts matter.
Hey, progressives, welcome back to the show. So I chuckle sometimes, Henry, at the wonderful guests that we have the opportunity to have on our show and the people who bring such great knowledge and on-the-ground experience. And with us this morning is a founding director of Paid Leave for All, a national leader in the fight for paid family and medical leave, and that would be Dawn Huckelbridge. Good morning, Dawn, and welcome to Choose Views.
Good morning, and thank you for having me.
Absolutely. It's good to have you with us and good to be on the show this morning. I was just joking with Henry about, some mornings when it's kind of raining and gloomy, you got to get that first cup of tea or coffee or even big old glass of water in you so that you can, get the wheels going. But thank you for being with us this early this morning.
Yeah,
so,
of course.
Dawn, take a moment and just help our listeners all over the country get a better idea, a better introduction to you and to your organization, Paid Leave for All. And then we'll get into some questions, okay?
Yeah, I'd be happy to. So I am, as you said, the director of Paid Leave for All. We are the national campaign of all of the organizations that have been in this fight to pass a federal paid family medical leave law. We are one of the only countries in the world, one of 7, that has no form of national paid leave, which means that only 1 in 4 of us has paid family leave through our jobs. It means that every day people are missing their own treatments. Every day people are missing their baby's first smiles. They're missing their parents' last breaths. And the economy, the economy is suffering as a result as well. So it's something we're working hard to change. We came really close. And hopeful there'll be another opportunity soon.
When you say you came, and thank you for that, Dawn. When you say you came really close, help our listeners have a better understanding of what that means.
Yeah, there was in 2021, we actually passed paid leave through the United States House of Representatives, and we were just within a vote of getting it into the Senate and getting it through there. So, we had high hopes for a minute. There was a lot of good things that could have happened in this country just a couple of years ago, but it did build momentum. We know the public support is there. It's consistent. It's extremely strong. So we just have to get through some elections and change things a little bit, and then we'll get back there.
So, and now I'm going to say this to you now because this is an ongoing conversation. So I'll definitely want to have you back in the weeks to come to talk about it and keep us up to date. But you mentioned a moment ago about the economy, and God, how do I want to say this without sounding crazy? I have always been that guy that understands the importance of families being connected during a crisis, and whether it be a big crisis or a small crisis or a small issue. For example, a medical issue. And we've been in this economy that we all know for decades where, a primary breadwinner has been the guy, and that's shifted in my lifetime, which I'm so thankful has shifted. But you've said that the economy suffers, or you've got the data that shows that the economy suffers when anybody in the family, how do I want to phrase this, doesn't have the access to the proper family paid leave. Explain that a little bit more for us.
Yeah, you're on the right track, exactly. Policies like these keep people in the workforce. They keep people attached to their jobs. It helps retain good workers. It helps with there's not the turnover costs. It kind of makes sense. If you have happy and healthy workers, it tends to help the bottom lines. And every single study that we've seen shows that paid leave is something that has a positive return on the investment. It's good for, again, keeping people in the workforce. We know that if we passed it with other policies that helped women and caregivers stay in the workforce, it would actually yield millions of jobs, billions in wages, and trillions in GDP. So this is something that is helpful for individual families' financial security. It's helpful for public health, and it's helpful for economic growth overall.
Well, and one of the things that you noted is that the number of retirees who end up retiring earlier, or folks that were upon retirement looking to leave earlier because of the fact that there was a family leave issue. Chat about that a little bit.
Yeah. So people drop out of the workforce and retire earlier than they planned when something comes up. And increasingly, there's this something called the sandwich generation, which is that many of us are taking care of both children and aging parents all at the same time. And many of us without the simple protection like paid leave. So we're going to see this particularly as baby boomers keep aging. There will be more and more care needs in this country. And we don't have the common sense policies or infrastructure that most of the world has to be prepared for that.
Small businesses have also been a big voice in this conversation because oftentimes they're going to be most immediately impacted because they don't have the staff to fill in. So talk a little bit about that if you can.
Of course, yeah, and this is completely a small business issue because also it is truly hard for smaller businesses to pay out of pocket for something like this. So what we are fighting for is a federal program that would be a business support in that way because it would be administered by the federal government. It wouldn't just be an unfunded mandate forcing businesses to pay out of their own pockets entirely for this. So yes, it is something that's harder for small businesses to weather and pay for. But overall, this is something that helps employers. Again, as I said, helps the economy. It's kind of a win-win all around.
Yeah. So with this big, beautiful, ugly, whatever kind of bill we want to talk about, it's like, what's the next label for it, Don? Come on, you and I've got to brainstorm and come up with what the. Yeah. But at the end of the day, when it comes to paid family leave for all, this Republican bill, which it frankly is, whether we're being partisan or nonpartisan, it misses some things that you've noted really, once again, show that unfortunately, the GOP doesn't really give a darn about this issue. Talk about that if you can.
Oh, yeah. So, well, what's interesting is I think they give a darn in name only. So I think there is something in this bill that some folks are calling paid leave. What it actually is simply another wealth transfer. It is another tax credit, a giveaway to the wealthiest corporations. And what the name, it's 45S is the name of the tax credit, but there are people are saying this is paid leave. This is something that reimburses businesses for offering paid leave to their workers. To me, it's unconscionable because there's no accountability. There's no reporting. There's nothing that does to make paid leave more affordable for employers to give or workers to take. And yet it's being called something that is a lot more popular than tax credits and giveaways to the wealthiest corporations in the country. So I just want to make sure people are following the money and tracking what things actually are.
Dawn, can you do a slightly deeper dive? I know we could very quickly get into the weeds on that, but you do a little, no, and all due respect, because I think folks would want to hear a little bit more, and we're going to make sure folks can find you and they can do some of the research, but go a little bit deeper if you can on the miss, as you call it, with what the Republicans are trying to put into 45S.
Yeah, so I think this is something that kind of whitewashes a lot of the horrors that are in this bill that are taking away from the hardworking families, poor families in this country, to make the largest wealth transfer in the history of the United States and to give back to just billionaires and huge corporations. So as I said, this tax credit, it has been around. The proposal now is in this bill is to make it permanent. We did Paid Leave for All, and our advisors did some looking into the Treasury data and what happened to this tax credit. The businesses largely, I think it's over 90% of them who took it, had more than $1 billion in revenue. And there was no tracking, there was no evidence that because of that tax credit that they expanded access, that they created access. Probably they already had paid leave. So this is something that is simply giving more money into the pockets of huge wealthy corporations with the name of a very popular progressive policy that people desperately need. So it is, to me, as I said, it's pretty unconscionable. It is not paid leave. Let's call it what it is, which is simply more money for wealthy corporations.
So they got to take some money for something that they didn't really fully represent, meaning businesses, and Republicans are pushing it even harder to make it permanent, that they can not only take those funds but keep those funds and not have to report about those funds.
Yep, and there's no tracking. They don't, no one's following if they did anything that had to do with paid leave with that money. So there you go.
So Dawn does work really hard to make the effort nonpartisan, because anybody and everybody is going to be a benefactor of having this as a federal program and policy. But at the end of the day, sometimes to get to that, you got to call out what is partisan or biased in legislation. And so that's one of the things that I really appreciate about you identifying what 45S is really all about. Okay, so as a dude, without children, we were talking with a leader yesterday, Anna Mercado, who was talking about the importance of educational funding, and even for families that don't have children. And this is where I said a moment ago before you came on, and you may have heard, the dotted line as it relates to family leave and medical care. Care can't wait. To use your phrase, care can't wait. We've got to be leaning into this 24/7. And we're in this week that, for lack of better words, is the anniversary of the Supreme Court's decision on women's right to choose, women's reproductive rights. And this is kind of I don't know how to say it, but this is a parallel issue, a cousin issue. Talk a little bit about that and how you see these two being connected so closely.
Yeah, they are connected. Because increasingly in this country, we no longer have the freedom to decide if we have a family, and we don't have the ability to support one if we do. And it's interesting, too, that none of the states that are implementing these abortion bans are offering paid leave. So it is, and I should say, there are states, 13 plus the District of Columbia, that have passed paid leave programs. None of the states with abortion bans do. So it shows the hypocrisy.
Did you say, Dawn?
And it shows.
I'm sorry, I just got to be clear because I want our listeners here. Did you say that none of the states? Repeat that if you could. I want folks to hear that one.
So the states that have implemented abortion bans, not a single one of them offers paid family leave.
Gosh.
So yeah, I mean, I think it shows that as a shock to no one, this isn't actually about life. This isn't about family. This is about control. And I'm hopeful that we're going to elect people soon who can take us into a new path, but it's a dangerous time in America. Yeah.
Yeah. So who are some of your allies in this space right now? Who are some of the people that, and whether they be in business or whether they be in politics, but where are you finding allies that are understanding the importance of this, and how are you working to connect and broaden that space?
It's a great question because it's hard to find an opposition, really, to this issue. This is something that I do think people get. Congress may not be acting on it, but people across party lines support this issue. It's wildly popular. We have allies, everything from small business coalitions to the labor community to maternal and child health organizations. You name it. And more, we did some polling just this month that shows not only does it continue to be popular across party lines, and as you said earlier, we are not a partisan organization. We're fighting for this for everybody. But we're also seeing that there is really strong support from men, which is something that hasn't been measured in quite this way before. We found more than 90% of men support paid leave. They want government solutions to help their lives and help them to be actively involved in their families. So this is something I thought was really interesting that we pulled out in the data, and that I think changes sort of the narrative about men in America right now.
Well, and you guys just conducted this great poll, and we'll have you back to talk about that in more depth and with more information. But give us some of the top line numbers in terms of the results of the poll as it relates to, and the poll is titled National State of Men in America, Family, Care, and Masculinity. Talk a little bit about that as we wrap up this morning.
Yeah, so as I said, it was a 92% overall supported paid leave, and not just for themselves or their family. It supported paid leave for all workers. That included, I believe it was 95% of dads in America. It was 90% of independent voters and 87% of Republican voters who were men. So that's a pretty high number, 87% of Republicans, 95% of dads. This was something that we saw transcend age and culture and race. And again, I think it shows that we hear so much about the manosphere, and we hear so much about the masculinity crisis in this country. But what we actually found is that the vast majority of men believe family is important to their masculinity. They support government solutions like paid leave. And to them, that was a top value.
Yeah, and that's a shift. What's great to hear about this, even though it's a shift of what where we may have been 10 years ago, certainly 20 years ago, I think it's also nice to see that your report and your poll stretched across a broad spectrum of different demographics, age, culture, community, race. And that's encouraging, and that in and of itself is I know got to be one of the reasons that you continue to fight hard in this space and continue to do the work that you do. Dawn, I hope you'll be willing to come back and talk with us again in a few weeks, because this is an ongoing issue, and I know that with all that's happening in Washington right now, there's so much that is up in the air. But this is something that impacts us all as family, as a indirect family to each of ourselves. So
it does. Yeah, no, anytime. I'd be happy to. Thank you for having me.
So let our listeners know how to find you. And the other part that I ask all of our guests is how people can get involved if they want to be involved. You know, not everybody is going to do certain things, but I've been just pushing this for a while now, is to, if you want to see change, you got to get involved in something. So let folks know, one, how they can find you, and at the same time, how they can get involved.
Well, you can find Paid Leave for All, spelled out one word, on most social media platforms. You can find me, Dawn Huckelbridge. But what I would say, follow along. We often, have petitions. We have ways to contact your legislators. make sure you're making your voice heard. Make sure you're voting in every single election. And remember that the people who are elected work for you, and it's their job to respond to you. And so make sure you are making your demands known, which is they should be doing something to fight for paid leave.
Dawn, I appreciate you saying that, because I think a lot of times my listeners don't take me seriously when I say, get involved. Don't let your voice be heard. I love that you said that, and we appreciate you being with us this morning. Stay strong in the fight. We're here to support your effort. We're going to have you back in the weeks to come, and just keep on doing what you're doing. We appreciate you.
Thanks so much.
All right. Have a great day. Bye now. Guys, that was Dawn Huckelbridge, who is a director of Paid Leave for All. Great organization, and as you could hear from the survey and the study, they've got a lot of good allies in the process. Let's take a quick break. We are moving fast this morning. When we come back, we've got a couple clips I want you guys to hear, and then we'll be talking with one of our colleagues, Maggie O'Keefe, on a similar topic in the space of care and where we are currently with the country. 773-763-9278 is our number, and we'll be right back.
When it comes to banking, you need a bank you can trust. A bank with a rock-solid reputation and the highest integrity. A bank that gives you the attention and respect you deserve.
ABOC first opened its doors in downtown Chicago in 1922. And we've made our name on deep expertise, best-in-class service, and a strong commitment to our customers. We know the Chicago business market inside and out and can help you craft the perfect banking solution, no matter what type of business you're in.
And if you're looking for a banking partner for your labor union, we can bring the type of expertise that only comes from a bank that was founded by labor unions and still has union employees and shareholders to this day.
Whether you need a deposit account, loan, trust services, or investment management, ABOC has you covered. Let's work together to manage your finances today while planning for a better tomorrow. ABOC, a bank built on a strong foundation.
Visit aboc.com to learn more. Member FDIC.
Chicago's Progressive Talk, WCPT 820, where facts matter.
It's Choose Views with Richard Chew on WCPT 820, Chicago's Progressive Talk.
Hey, Progressives, welcome back to the show. It was great having Dawn with us this morning. Reach out to their organization, which is Paid Leave for All. And in these days that we are in right now with the change that took place 3 years ago with Dobbs and women's reproductive rights, we've had such amazing contributions from so many people with our country reeling in so many different directions. This is an area that's impacted so many people's lives, so many women's lives. We have a quick clip that we'd like to play from Representative Catherine Clark, and then we'll get to our wonderful guest, Maggie O'Keefe.
We represent the entire House Democratic Caucus in commemorating what is a very painful day for women and girls in our country. Today is a reminder of how much suffering has been inflicted by Donald Trump and his Supreme Court. 3 years ago today, Trump's right-wing Supreme Court eradicated half a century of progress. His judges declared that women's health, our well-being, even our survival, all of it is secondary. What comes first is an ideology of control, absolute control over if, when, and how to start a family. And as we look forward to celebrating the 4th of July and our fundamental freedoms as Americans, it is a painful contrast that young women today in our country have fewer rights than their grandmothers did, that doctors are being threatened with jail time for providing needed care. Patients are being denied life-saving care. 35% of the counties in our country now are maternity care deserts. And in states that have broad abortion bans, that number soars. In Georgia, for example, half of all counties don't have a single obstetrician. And now the GOP is going even further. Despite all the promises on the campaign trail we heard last year, Republicans are still not finished taking away health care from women in this country. Their big, ugly bill will kick 16 million Americans off of health coverage. It will undo state laws that require insurance coverage for abortion care. It will shut down hospitals and clinics around this country, especially in rural communities. It will defund Planned Parenthood, which means it will defund cancer screenings, prenatal care, postpartum care, fertility treatments, and preventative care. And even this week on the House floor, the GOP will put up an appropriations bill that says to our active women in uniform and to our veterans, you cannot travel to get the care you need if it is not afforded to you where you are serving.
That was Representative Catherine Clark. And with us this morning, elected in 2020, serves as a Democratic Committeeperson for the Chicago's 40th Ward, and the youngest member of the Cook County Democratic Party is none other than Maggie O'Keefe, who is a contributor and just posted a wonderful opinion piece at Heartland Signal. Maggie, good morning and welcome to the show.
Good morning. Thank you for having me on this early morning.
Yeah, exactly. Get that coffee going.
That's right. That's right.
So, can we hear her okay? Okay, let's boost that a little bit. So, Maggie, you just posted an opinion piece, how advocates are fighting in the shifting landscape of reproductive rights 3 years after Dobbs. Let's dig into that. Let's talk about the impetus behind you writing this piece.
Well, women's rights is an everybody's rights issue. I don't know about you, but I can remember where I was 3 years ago when the Dobbs decision fell, and here in the state of Illinois, our GOTV primary was here, and in between the tiers, we were also organizing to make sure we had qualified Democrats winning their elections. I think when we think about the fight ahead, we have to also celebrate the wins wherever they may be. And those are in our advocates, those are in our nonprofit leaders like Dawn, who we just heard from Paid Leave for All, who are all doing the work every single day to claw back this archaic decision that came down. This is a fight that has been going on way before Dobbs, way before Roe v. Wade. And it's young folks like myself and the generation underneath us, like my sister, who are the ones that are going to suffer under these consequences.
Well, and I'll share with you, I do remember when the decision came down, but I also remember what I did right afterward, and I mentioned this on the air recently, is that I immediately stopped and texted my sister. I was actually driving. I pulled over, and I texted my sister, and I said, I apologize. My older sister, who was an adult fighting for this, for a woman's right to choose in the 70s when this decision was first put forward. And so for me, it was impactful because I remember how hard she worked and other women of her age group worked for this. And then to see that she has a daughter now and a granddaughter, that their lives are not going to be, but are currently impacted by it. So it is, the words like landmark and things like that, I don't think are appropriate. I think destructive and harmful are more appropriate. Landmark for me tends to be one of a word that I like to use when something positive happens. But that's my opinion, not everybody else's. And it is as a guy to that's why what having Dawn on was really important in integrating you in this conversation, because paid leave for all is an economic issue, and it certainly is a family issue. The Dobbs decision is an economic issue as much as it is a family-based issue, and unfortunately, we've got 6 Supreme Court justices who decided that they didn't really care about the women and the families, frankly, in our country.
Yeah, and we have to remember that the majority of Americans believe in access to abortion. In the piece that I wrote multiple times about Missouri, which I think has been an interesting place where across this country, right, if that's the microcosm that we are looking at or focusing on, where they passed an amendment, and now the Republicans in their state house want to repeal that amendment by putting forth a new amendment just 6 months after an amendment won, right? So they don't want to play fair. They've never wanted to play fair. They don't want to actually listen to the people. The Supreme Court, unfortunately, was chosen by this current administration in their previous administration to actually hurt people. It's like full stop for me. Yep. They want to hurt folks. They don't want to help folks. But again, we have to remember that the majority of Americans actually want to have access to abortion.
And reproductive care. We sometimes soften words, and there's a reason that's good. Sometimes there's a good reason for doing that. Reproductive rights, I think, is a family conversation, and it's one that allows for men to be more actively involved and be understanding of the fact that this is a family decision. This is not just, candidly, your wife's decision, but women should be at the head of the table when it comes to a woman's right to choose. And I think that's why I guess I can hopefully be a little bit hopeful. But at the same time, we can't take our foot off the gas in terms of the attention to this. Maggie, a couple last words before we wrap up. As you know, we're getting to the top of the hour.
Of course. Look, no act is too small. No time is too little. If we or you don't do anything, nothing will get done. And if there is an issue that it speaks to you in this moment under this administration, I say go forth and prosper. We all have to do something. It takes all of us to change things. If that's reproductive rights and making sure that your family, your sister, your friends have the same access as your parents, go for it. Or if it's that speed hump on your street, go and do it. Do anything in this moment to not only make yourself feel better, but make a better community for all.
Exactly, and that's the not only the goal, but that's the rallying cry right now, is to make sure that the effort is not just for you, but for the greater community around you. Maggie, thanks for being with us. Guys, make your way over to heartlandsignal.com. That's our digital platform. You'll be able to read Maggie's opinion piece for yourself, how advocates are fighting in the shifting landscape of reproductive rights 3 years after Dobbs. Maggie O'Keefe, thanks for being with us this morning.
Appreciate you.
You too. Have a great day. Bye now.
Bye.
Henry, we're running hard, man. I'm going to hand the baton off to you guys. We're going to take a quick break. The number is 773-763-9278. When we come back, we'll be talking with none other than Kurt Mullett of Hoosier Blue 63. We'll be right back.
Celebrate the culmination of Pride Month in Chicago by attending the Chicago Pride Parade, a celebration of love and unity on Sunday, June 29th. This year's theme, United in Pride, highlights the power of coming together, embracing our diversity, and championing love and equality as one united force. Together, we are unstoppable. You can watch anywhere along the route, from Broadway and Grace to Diversey and Sheridan. For more information, visit pridechicago.org and make sure to keep your eyes out for the WCPT float. If you can't attend the parade in person, you can listen live as Scott Duff and Ellen Miller describe all the excitement on WCPT 820 on Sunday, June 29th from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. The WCPT live parade broadcast is sponsored by the Center in Halstead and by Credo Mobile, a progressive phone company that is better for all people and the planet. Visit credomobile.com. WCPT 820, your Pride station in Chicago. From office supplies to IT essentials, Amazon Business provides tools that help you save costs and make insight-based decisions. Learn how to bring your visions to life at AmazonBusiness.com.
AP News, I'm Marcela Sanchez. President Trump is in the Netherlands meeting with NATO members. NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte says the alliance is ready to enact one of Trump's chief priorities, increasing how much member countries spend on defense.
All of them, including Canada, including Italy, including Belgium, they have all now committed to the 2%. And now comes the big splash. Today, we will decide to go to 5%. We have to keep ourselves safe for our adversaries, but also because it is fair to equalize with the United States.
And AP correspondent Charles de Ledesma reports Britain will buy 12 U.S.-made F-35 fighter jets capable of carrying nuclear bombs and will join NATO's shared airborne nuclear mission.
Prime Minister Keir Starmer made the announcement while attending a NATO summit in the Netherlands. Secretary General Mark Rutte welcoming the decision, calling it yet another robust British contribution to NATO, while the government says it's the biggest strengthening of our nuclear posture in a generation. The UK phased out airdropped atomic weapons in the 1990s after the end of the Cold War. Its nuclear arsenal now consisting of submarine-based missiles. Only 3 NATO members, the US, Britain and France, are nuclear powers, while 7 nations contribute to the alliance's nuclear mission by contributing jets that can carry American B-61 bombs stockpiled in Europe. I'm Charles de Ledesma.
Zoran Mamdani declared victory in New York City's Democratic primary for mayor. Andrew Cuomo conceded the race, telling a crowd he had called Mamdani to congratulate him. The young progressive was virtually unknown when the contest began and built a substantial lead over the more experienced but scandal-scarred former governor. The outcome will still be decided by a ranked choice count. European shares slipped today and Asian benchmarks advanced. Oil prices rebounded slightly after falling about 6% yesterday. This is AP News. A cargo ship carrying cars to Mexico has sunk in international water off Alaska's Aleutian Islands.
The Morning Midas cargo ship caught fire earlier this month off Alaska's Aleutian Islands. It had been carrying some 3,000 new cars to a port in Mexico. All 22 crew members abandoned ship and were rescued by a nearby vessel. Now the Coast Guard reports the ship has sunk. Damage from the fire, bad weather, and water seepage the causes. The Coast Guard says there's no visible pollution right now, but both they and the ship's management company have vessels on site in case that changes. It's unclear if any of the cars were taken off the Morning Midas before it sank. I'm Ben Thomas.
India, Poland, and Hungary launched their first astronauts in over 40 years today. The 3 men, along with retired U.S. astronaut Peggy Whitson, are on a private flight set to reach the International Space Station by tomorrow morning. I'm Marcela Sanchez.
This is 820 AM, WCPT Willow Springs, and streaming worldwide at WCPT820.com. We are Chicago's progressive talk, where facts matter. Now, your WCPT 820 weather update.
From the Weatherology Weather Center, I'm meteorologist Jennifer Wojcicki. We'll see a few scattered showers and thunderstorms at times here for today with cloudy skies, a high in the mid-80s. Winds out of the northeast around 5 to 10 miles per hour. Then for tonight, a slight chance for showers and storms, mostly cloudy, low of 72. Thursday, another chance for rain and thunderstorms, blend of clouds and sunshine develops, high of 93. Friday, chance for rain and storms, a high around 88. That's your latest Chicago weather update.
Currently, it's 72.
Now more than ever, Lowe's knows you don't just want a low price, you want the lowest price. And with our lowest price guarantee, you can count on us for competitive prices on all your home improvement projects. If you find a qualifying lower price somewhere else on the same item, we'll match it. Lowe's, we help, you save. Price match applies the same item. Current price at qualifying retailers. Exclusions and terms apply. Learn how we'll match price at Lowe's.com/lowest price guarantee.
Because facts matter. You are listening to WCPT 820.
Welcome back to Choose Views with Richard Chu on WCPT 820 AM, where facts matter. Take it away, Richard.
Hey, progressives. Welcome back to Choose Views, 773-763-9278. Man, how about that? Maggie O'Keefe's great article, opinion piece over at Heartland Signal WCPT.com, our digital newsroom and digital platform. You guys need to make your way over there. And then speaking with Dawn Huckelbridge, who is the director of Paid Leave for All, in this conversation today, this part of the week, with regard to Dobbs, with regard to family protection. Of course, yesterday we had Anna Mercado on with us to talk about the importance of staying plugged into our educational systems and making sure that we're keeping folks, I want to say feet to the fire. Someone said not to use that, but holding people accountable in that space. So really great guest and women leading in that conversation. So it's Wednesday. So what does that mean? We should almost have like walk-on music for Kurt. We got to come up with something. We might have to do that. I'm not even going to surprise him and say that. We're just going to tell you, we might come up with some walk-on music for Kurt Mullett. Good morning, sir. Welcome to the show.
Hey, good morning. How are you doing?
I'm doing great, brother. Good to hear your voice.
You too, brother.
There's no, I mean, you know, the introduction of you goes from one place to the next. So it's just good to have you on the show. And I don't want to ask you the broad question, what's going on in your world? Because what's going on in your world is going on in mine. It's just we're in a different zip code. Man, oh man, oh man. So, all right, guys.
I appreciate it.
I want to drop this on you, all of you listeners. I don't know how much we can talk about this, but we'll talk for a moment about it. Kurt posted a video. You guys have got to go to Hoosier Blue 63. Kurt posted a video that I just found. It was one of those moments where I went, oh boy. And let me tell you guys about the video. All right. There is a guy who looks like me, as a phrase that's often used in the African American community. Skin folks ain't kin folks. And there is an African American man who goes on and posts this video on social media about the real allies right now. And I'm just going to kind of keep this as simple as I can. The real allies are the conservative Republicans who have never been an enemy of the African American community, and that the policies and the support and the standby has come from the Republican and the conservatives, and sort of throws Democrats and progressives and liberals under the bus, saying that we've always been the enemy and we've always been the ones that have kept folks, quote unquote, on the plantation. And although I understand the sentiment that this guy is trying to put out there about who may have let down certain communities in the country, Kurt wasn't having it. Neither was I, but Kurt wasn't having it because he was making it clear that he's done everything he could in his entire 61 years to be an ally of everybody, irrespective of community, culture, and creed. So you guys need to go check this video out that he posted. It's worth a couple of minutes of time to listen to and to watch. So how about that for an introduction, sir?
Yeah. Obviously, it struck a nerve with me, and I was emotional when I made the reel. And I need to understand and tell myself not to do that, because sometimes I can let my emotions get the better of me. But I know you don't like to use certain words, but the stupidity of people is just astounding to me. Sitting there telling us the difference, what he believes, between a white liberal and a white conservative. And I was blown away by his assessment of the situation and what he thinks. And I just, you and I have talked about this before. I will never be able to understand what it is like in any, and I don't pretend to be born black and brought into this world as a black man or a black individual. I will never understand that. Okay, I will never be able to grasp that. That's something that I'm totally aware of. But I have an understanding of history and what it's like to be looked upon when they, I told you before, when I walk into Kroger's now with my Obama hat, people stare at me, and so that gives me a bit of a sense of it. Nothing, and I'm it's just crazy, Richard.
You guys have
How does a dude like that think that way?
Here's what I want everybody
seriously.
to do. To save Kurt some stress. I don't put any more stress in the man's heart. Y'all just need to go watch the video. It's worth the watch, and I'll leave it there. And I'm going to pivot to a great article that you posted on Substack, which brings conversation to the JCPOA, which is the acronym for the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action. Let's talk about that.
Or the Iran nuclear deal.
Correct. So let's talk talk a little bit about that. You posted a really, really good article, I thought, in that space. But you broke down some of the recent historicals on going back, going back 10 years of this agreement and what it was designed to do and what it was doing. So let's talk about that a little bit.
Well, yeah, I and thank you for that. I appreciate it. I read all of the stuff you post on there, and I'm glad that you catch some of mine.
Absolutely.
I just absolutely am blown away by this whole situation and how Trump has what he does is he goes into he did this in his first administration, and this is why we have a lot of the border issue, okay, is because when he goes in, he removes us from organizations, he changes policies, he puts sanctions, he undoes or reverses all of the good that the previous administration did. He did it to Obama, and now he's doing it to Biden. And the Iran nuclear deal is a perfect example of that. The article basically that I put out, and I did some research on it. I have to do that in order to know what I'm talking about. But in 2013, there were global concerns about the uranium stockpiling that Iran was happening in Iran, and so a group of nations got together and put together the Iran nuclear deal, and immediately their stockpiling of uranium dropped to zero. And it remained that way until Trump come in and took us out of the Iran nuclear deal, and immediately the stockpiling numbers started to rise until they reached a number higher than what they were before the deal was set. So he created this mess. No one else did. Joe Biden was left with this. Him and Anthony Blinken worked endlessly throughout the administration without, we don't see everything that, administrations do behind the scene, but they constantly were working on this to try to bring, I don't know if they could bring back to life the deal, but they were trying to solve this issue because they knew what was going to happen. So basically that's the article in a nutshell. This was a situation created by Trump so he could justify doing what he's doing.
A lot of people don't necessarily understand. They hear the words, the Iran deal, the Iran nuclear deal, et cetera, and they don't really understand. They know peripherally that it existed. And I want to kind of go right along with Kurt in the crazy car of breaking this down. Essentially, going back to some of the numbers, and this is important, guys. In 2015, this deal was signed that essentially was designed to monitor and make sure, like we do with other countries, maybe less overtly, but that we made it clear to Iran and to the rest of the world that since there had been an increase in the stockpiling, that we were going to say, wait a minute. Now, to what extent can we stop it? Well, we can manage it by keeping our eyes on it and being watchful of it. and I'm using layperson's terminology here because, like Kurt said, we aren't sitting in those private room meetings. But the goal was to say we don't need to bomb them. We could have, because y'all remember in the 2008 election, that was a big part of the conversation. And John McCain took the position, as I said on Monday, that we should be bombing Iran in measure. Okay. But this was designed to reduce, if not eliminate, the Iran stockpiling of uranium. And as I said, to cite this one line from Beverly Hills Cop 2, it was working. It was working, y'all. The numbers went to zero. And then when Trump got in office in 2018, he and his knuckleheads decided, and let me be
sorry.
That's okay. Let me be honest here and very clear. One of the people that was pushing this, that the deal get taken, that the JCPOA get removed, was none other than Benjamin Netanyahu. You gotta understand that? He wanted it to be removed. Think about that for a second. The guy that says that Iran is a problem and has been begging the United States for going back to 1996, when we had something in place to manage that, he was an advocate to have it removed, and Trump did. And that then left President Biden with a handful of garbage. And President Biden did his best to navigate, to keep this sort of cleaned up and fix the issue and try to use diplomacy. So this mess, as Kurt says in his article, it strictly is on the shoulders of the 34-time convicted felon, period. It is strictly on his shoulders because we were there. It was working, and we were in a situation where this situation was going to be navigated and managed without having to go in to attack, to bomb, and to create a situation where we would be left vulnerable. And that's that. Your article really does highlight that very, very well. And what do you refer to him as? Well, we can't use all the language here, but he's a weak A jealous man.
Yeah, he is. That's who the guy is. He's small. He's a small man. You know, you hear the term small man. That's what he is. You know, he has no soul. He has no core. He has, I mean, he's so easy to break down as far as who he is, okay?
Yeah.
He's not intelligent. He's not educated. He's not well-spoken. He doesn't have a soul. He cares about no one. He's a liar. He's a cheat. He's a thief. He's a thug. He's a bully. You know, I mean, you run out of time to use all the adjectives of who this guy is. You know,
Henry said something. Henry said something to me during the break. He said, Richard, the thing that's just like crazy is like every 2 weeks is something else that drops off or drops into the conversation because of the fact that, to your point, he is without direction, without any guidance. And we know that we can complain and label him all day long. To your point, we run out of time to drop in the adjectives. But what is real right now is that people are being hurt by this craziness and this carnage on so many different levels. You heard our previous guests, both Maggie and Dawn, talk about the importance of paid family leave, the important that impacts us dudes as well as it impacts the women in our lives, and whether that be family that we're caring for and all the rest. This is also part of that larger GOP strategy, is to keep the country on tilt, not on stable ground. And that's what this attack has done, is actually not put us on more stable ground. It's put us on more tilted ground. It's just yet another deficiency of this administration and the greater GOP, to be honest with you.
Yeah, and it's just another way for them to, distract people and create more chaos so that we, they want to overwhelm us with things going on so that our brains get fried. And it's very easy for human beings to be fried because of the amount of things that are going on around them, and their anxiety levels rise and they lose sight of what's happening. It's just like Tom Homan goes on Fox News and makes a comment that there could be over 2 million Iranians in sleeper cells in the U.S. Okay, well, Tom, and if people don't know who he is, he's his border czar. Okay, he's Trump's border czar. Okay, Tom, if that's the case, I've got a couple questions for you. First off, how long have you known this information? And second, why are we so concerned with innocent women who are immigrants and you're ripping children out of their arms and throwing them out of the country when we have 2 million Iranians in sleeper cells in the country?
Come on, man.
I mean, come on. Yeah, really, come on. And people watch Fox News and they're like, oh, wow, 2 million,
We should have bombed them because we should have bombed them because they've got 2 million sleepers.
We should have bombed them.
Really? Okay, so and this is, guys, this is why folks have got to pay attention. We have to be aspirational. We have to be inspired to move forward. We have to push our Democratic elected officials on all levels. We've got to make some changes on who's on the team, and we have to be willing to call out the BS real time. Because to your point so well, if there are 2 million sleeper cells of Iranians in the country, then wouldn't we have been better off spending our time working on exiting those folks from the country than going and bombing? Because if that's the case, then what is it that sleeper cells, Henry's nodding his head profusely, sleeper cells, now, if that's true, Holman, then we just went and knocked on their door in Iran and said, hey, guess what? We don't give a darn. We're going to bomb you anyhow. That's going to awaken the sleeper cells. So either that's...
they just looked at all these Iranians in the sleeper cells in the U.S. and said, release the Kraken. I mean, that's
so
what they're doing.
Right. If it's true, then let's go after them rather than igniting, lighting a match to a flame. I mean, what's the point? Or lighting a match to gas? Right. So, and then it's either that they're lying and full of malarkey, which there's a part that we got to believe is, part of that.
Yeah, I have a hard time believing anything he says, but he said
it. Yes, he said it. Hard time believing it, but he still said it, and that's the tragedy of it all. They still said it with the goal of like you said about Fox News. That's exactly where they are. Those folks are there. They're listening to Fox News and they're going, "Oh my God, we should." And so it's part of the big lie, and it's just one more facet of it. But I love your article, man. That was good stuff.
Thank you.
And well written, and with the research that's needed when you're talking about something detailed like that. We've got a busy morning this morning. I know you know that.
Yes, you do.
And I want to make a couple quick points out for you guys. First of all, you need to get with Kurt Mullett, Hoosier Blue 63. His article on Substack is great. It's a well-written piece, and it's well-researched. So you guys need to check that out for yourselves. Also, I want you to check out his video, his reel, so he doesn't have to have more of a stress on his heart about his frustration with what this guy posted about conservatives and liberals, because he does a good job of replying and retorting to this gentleman and his his brain deadness on this subject. So, hey man,
I didn't know how it was going to be received, but hey, that's
you got to speak
not
your
every
truth.
Thing can be. I can't let it be silent. So hey, I appreciate it. I know you had a great day. It's a great start. You've had some great guests on this week so far. You're absolutely dropping the mic. So keep going, buddy. I appreciate all the work you do.
Haven't these ladies been just so amazing? And I don't,
unbelievable.
I don't want to sound like some dumb guy talking. It just goes to show the power of having strong women in our lives and the power of having strong women in these leadership roles. And the ladies that have been on this week, oh my gosh, Maggie a moment ago before you, Dawn, Anna yesterday. I mean, just phenomenal folk.
And they all need to realize, and I think they do, there are a lot of men in this country that appreciate strong women and are standing right next to them in their fight.
Absolutely.
We believe in them. So
yes, we do.
And I think a lot of them know that. So
well,
hey, thanks, man.
Thanks, man, for being with us, Kurt. Thanks so much for all you do and your article and your reels. It's just powerful stuff. Go check him out, Hoosier Blue 63. It's Kurt Mullett, y'all. Thanks for being with us, man.
Have a wonderful day, buddy.
You too. Bye-bye. You got to check out his reel. It's it's worth the read or the watch. I will say that. All right, let's take a quick break, Henry, so we can get ourselves ready for our next guest, which I'm so excited to talk about. My good friend Doc from, excuse me, Dr. or Professor, I should say, Andrew Seligsohn, who'll be with us in a moment from Public Agenda. 773-763-9278. This is Choose Views, and we'll be right back.
This is a WCPT Veteran Minute. In the midst of World War II, a group of Native American soldiers known as the Code Talkers became silent heroes. The U.S. military faced challenge of secure communications on the battlefield, and these men, primarily from the Navajo tribe, were enlisted to develop an unbreakable code. Using their native language, which had no written alphabet, they transmitted vital messages that were indecipherable to enemy forces. The code proved to be an essential asset, particularly in the Pacific Theater, where it helped the Allies win crucial battles. The Code Talkers' courage and ingenuity saved countless lives and turned the tide of the war. Yet, their contributions remained largely unknown until decades later. The legacy of the Code Talker stands as a testament to the strength, resilience, and valuable service of Native Americans during one of America's most devastating conflicts. This has been a WCPT Veteran Minute.
Greece is cheap.
But the airfare costs a fortune.
Paris?
Not much closer, and again, airfare...
What about Puerto Vallarta?
Let's face it, flying anywhere is just too expensive.
Wait, what's this? Low-cost airlines.
With one call to low-cost airlines, you'll drastically slash your travel costs. We're talking insanely low airline prices to any of your favorite destinations. Where would you like to go? London, Rome, Costa Rica, Australia?
Wow, that's cheap.
So why wait? Call now to learn how crazy cheap it is to fly anywhere in the U.S. or international. Our prices are so low, we can't publish them. The only way to get them is to call to instantly hear the most amazing best deals on airline travel. It's that easy. So call now and start packing.
800-708-3091. 800-708-3091. 800-708-3091. That's 800-708-3091.
What is your healing power? Maybe your healing power is helping veterans with PTSD, traumatic brain injuries, depression, anxiety, or loneliness. Is your healing power a simple, heartfelt letter or being a volunteer? It is estimated that over 500,000 current warfighters will return from service diagnosed with PTSD, and 22 veterans will commit suicide every day. Our veterans have paid the ultimate sacrifice for our country. At healvets.org, you can find out more about the healing power of pen pals, volunteers, therapy kits, and more. Discover your healing power at healvets.org. Help Heal Veterans, together with you, has been helping one recovering veteran at a time. We are helping veterans heal together. What is your healing power? To find out about your power, visit healvets.org. This PSA is sponsored by Help Heal Veterans.
You're listening to WCPT 820. Here's the latest Chicago weather update.
From the Weatherology Weather Center, I'm meteorologist Jennifer Wojcicki. We'll see a few scattered showers and thunderstorms at times here for today with cloudy skies, a high in the mid-80s. Winds out of the northeast around 5 to 10 miles per hour. Then for tonight, a slight chance for showers and storms, mostly cloudy, low 72. Thursday, another chance for rain and thunderstorms, blend of clouds and sunshine develops, high 93. Friday, chance for rain and storms, a high around 88. That's your latest Chicago weather update.
Currently, it's 72.
I'm Smokey Bear, and I made an assistant to help you out, because only you can prevent wildfires.
Hey, Assistant Smokey Bear, call me Papa Bear, because I'm grilling up dinner. Do you get it?
Yes, good job.
So, what should I do with all these coals?
Don't just toss them out. Put them in a metal container, because those embers can start a wildfire.
I understand. The stakes are high.
Ha, 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 ha.
Learn more at SmokeyBear.com.
Brought to you by the U.S. Forest Service, your state forester, and the Ad Council.
Nearly 1 in 2 U.S. adults have high blood pressure. That's why it's important to self-monitor your blood pressure in 4 easy-to-remember steps. It starts with a monitor. Be next to talk to your doctor about your blood pressure numbers. Get down with your blood pressure. Self-monitoring is power. Visit managerbp.org. Brought to you by the Ad Council, the American Heart Association, and the American Medical Association, in partnership with the Office of Minority Health and Health Resources and Services Administration.
Serving part-time in the Army National Guard has led to a lot of firsts for me. It paid for me to be the first person in my family to go to school. That education got me to the first day at my dream job, which I can still hold while I serve part-time. That job and the home loan benefits I got from the Army National Guard helped me buy my first house. I also know that I will be one of the first to respond if my community ever needs me.
Sponsored by the Illinois Army National Guard. Aired by the Illinois Broadcasters Association and this station.
Hey Google, play WCPT.
Streaming Chicago's progressive talk from TuneIn.
Welcome back to Choose Views with Richard Chu on WCPT 820, Chicago's progressive talk.
Hey guys, welcome back to Choose Views, 773-763-9278. Henry and Devin and Paul and Lady B are just technical magicians. They make stuff happen when things aren't happening the right way. So I appreciate them, and I like to say that as many times as possible to my road dogs. So listen, you guys know that I like to use this phrase because I believe it and I feel it. We have some really sharp people that we get and have, the opportunity to interview and to talk with, and have become kind of a little bit of the family in some ways of WCPT and specifically Choose Views. One of those folks is a gentleman that we had on a few weeks ago, and I said, we got to have you back. And when I said that, he said, sure, we'll figure it out. That turns out to be our guest this morning at this point in the show, none other than Professor Andrew Seligsohn, who's with us this morning from Public Agenda and the wonderful work that they're doing over there. Good morning, Doc. How are you doing today?
Good morning. I'm doing very well. It's nice to be back with you.
Absolutely. Well, we'll take a quick moment. Dr., as I refer to him as Doc, President of Public Agenda, Andrew Seligsohn is PhD, and one of the leaders that's bringing more light and important light to education and civic engagement, and has really been a voice that's made it clear that the more that we talk about improving our educational systems, the more that we talk about keeping our foot on the gas, if you will, the better those systems are going to be. And he's really been a leader in that space. Of late, you've got this new research that you've done that I think is really important and compelling when it comes to Americans still respecting, even in this crazy time, the rule of law, and trying to find ways to navigate and have conversations with each other that bring in the word compromise. Let's talk about that a little bit this morning.
Absolutely. At Public Agenda, we're always doing research that's intended to be useful to people trying to solve problems, make our world better, make our democracy work better. And so we've recently been working with some partners at the SNF Agora Institute at Johns Hopkins University. And really what's motivating this research is the sense that, it's okay for people to disagree about policy views. That's a normal thing in a democracy. But we really do need a large majority of Americans to believe in the rule of law, in consistently applying the Constitution, in making policy changes through the appropriate channels, respecting the roles of the different branches of government and the place they have in our system. And, we can see a lot of evidence around us that there's a lot of stress being placed on that right now. And so we were interested in finding out, it's easy to stand up for the rule of law, et cetera, when your party's out of power and you think the other party may be doing things you don't like. So we're not surprised that many, many Democrats right now share that concern. We wanted to know, are there Republicans who maybe they agree with the president on a lot of policy questions, but they're concerned about the rule of law and they think it's important to continue to maintain it. And as you said, continue to have an environment where, yes, we can disagree, but we do it within the framework of our system. And we found some things that are encouraging. We found some things that you might see as troubling, and some of it depends on the lens that you view it all through. So we can dig into that however you'd like.
Well, I think what's interesting, and thank you for being with us again, Professor. It is important that the method that we go forward with is one that everybody can have a stake in the method. You know, the laws and following the laws and how we interpret, and maybe not even interpret the law, is one conversation, but the method, the way in which we engage, has become, for lack of better words, kind of blood sport. Maybe it's always been that way, but the fact that folks weren't testing what is legal, I don't recall that being a part of the conversation. Testing if something should be done a certain way was one part of the conversation, but to just sort of run roughshod over the rule of law, we've not really been here, certainly in my lifetime, and you and I are relatively close in age, to have seen that there was still that respect for the rule of law. Our process may have been a different, we may have approached it differently in discussing it. And is that kind of what you garnered from your finding?
Yeah, so I think, what you're saying is exactly right. There is more going on right now coming from this administration. And, we're a nonpartisan group, but we also believe in democracy, the rule of law, et cetera. So we're kind of calling balls and strikes. And, yeah, this administration is testing the limits of our system of taking actions that maybe the executive branch has not historically been thought of as having the power to do, et cetera. And what we're seeing is that, as an example, so we just did a survey of a sample of all Americans. 60% of Americans don't think that the president should just be able to ignore the courts when they make a ruling that he doesn't like. That's, I would say that is pretty good news. 60% is not close to 100, but it's more than a majority. The flip side of that is just 34% of Republicans hold that view. So only about a third of Republicans, another third don't agree with that, and then there's a third who aren't sure how they feel about it. Similarly, we asked people, should Congress impeach judges just because they rule against the president in power? About 58% of Americans said no. Again, that's not bad news, but fewer than half of Republicans were on that side of things. So, I think we do have we have a situation where you still have majority support from the American people as a whole, but folks who are supportive of the president right now are much more willing to say, hey, I'm not so worried about whether you follow the law as the courts understand it, or I'm not so worried about preserving the independence of the judiciary, which has been kind of a bedrock of our system. And so, again, that's where you can view it as a kind of glass half full or a glass half empty. I guess some interesting things, in the context you were talking about sort of whether people see politics as a blood sport and whether they're comfortable with that. 61% of the people in our survey said they still believe that politicians need to work across the aisle, even if it means giving up some of their goals. And that was true of 65% of Democrats, 62% of Republicans. So that is a view that's held across, the aisle. On the other hand, we asked people, do you think the other party is bad for the country, or are they downright evil? Like we said, are they just bad for the country, or are they downright evil? And 63% of Democrats said Republicans were downright evil. 57% of Republicans said Democrats were downright evil. And that's one of those things where it's pretty hard to get people to say, hey, you know what, we should stay within the lines, play by the rules, if you think you're not just dealing with people you disagree with, but people who are evil. And I think that is, again, that is a change that's happened in our country, and it's not great. One thing I would say about this, and there's more I can say about, we broke some of this down by age, and younger people are less likely to see the other side as evil than are older Americans. So 70% of baby boomers said the other side was evil. When you ask the same question for Gen Z folks, it was only 47%, way fewer. So that was kind of interesting because I think a lot of people tend to blame young people for a lot of our problems. That's not really something we found in this survey.
Well, and that also lends itself to this to the conversation in terms of evil. It's what's that group's, if there is an agenda behind thinking that the other group or the other people, the other folk are evil. What is it that's driving that conversation? And I would want to know, and then because of the work that you guys do at Public Agenda, when you conduct a poll like this and conduct a survey like this, how do you set it up? How do you go about getting the tactical information and tools to be able to put something together like this, or to go out and do it and then get the results and go through? What are some of your bullet points in creating something like this?
Yeah, that's a really interesting question. As I said, we, in this case, have been working with these partners at Johns Hopkins University, and they've been doing work over a couple of years where they've been just really meeting with conservatives, Republicans, to hear how are they thinking about some of these issues and where do they find continued support for maintaining the strength of the system. And one of the things that they and others had found during the period when Joe Biden was president was that a question that kind of split Republicans into this 2/3, 1/3 was, who do you think won the 2020 election? So about a third of Republicans always said Joe Biden won the 2020 election. And they had views that looked pretty different from the rest of Republicans, not so much on policy questions, but again on these questions about adherence to the rule of law, et cetera. And so one of the things we started with was, okay, that question is kind of fading into the background of the rear view. There's been another election. There's a lot of things that have happened. Are there still some ways that we can distinguish between Republicans who agree with their party and the president on the policy questions, but are still, adherents of the rule of law and potentially partners in working in a broad coalition if there are moments where people need to stand up for that? And so we began by thinking about, and in fact, this survey is the first of two, so there'll be a second one, and I'll be happy to come on back.
I can't wait.
Once we've seen that second survey.
Can't wait, man.
Exactly. And a big part of this one was just to say, let's see whether we can find some questions that help us sort out who's who. Who are the Republicans that really still say, yeah, it matters whether we follow the law. It matters whether we respect courts and judges. And so some of these questions we were really using just to say, does this help us kind of see who's who? Because then we can go in our second survey and ask a lot more detailed questions of the group that shows that it does, is concerned about like maintaining the features of the system that are, as you were saying, so important for enabling us to talk to each other, work together, try to solve problems, even in the context of disagreement. And so that was really what we were aiming at here. We asked a lot of different questions. So, for example, we asked some questions like, who do you think was responsible for the war in Ukraine? We wondered whether that would neatly divide. And it turns out that one isn't so neat, and there was an age dimension on that, too. Older people of all kinds, much more likely to say Russia's responsible. Younger people, a little more likely to say, oh, well, maybe both sides bear some responsibility.
No kidding. Really?
Yeah. Yeah, and so that was interesting to us. I will say on this age question, it was an interesting mix because we found that for the most part, we looked within Republicans because that was the group we were really interested in understanding more. And we said, okay, our younger Republicans, we've been hearing a lot of talk like younger people, they're not so supportive of democracy. They're not so hung up on the rule of law. A lot of people say, hey, they haven't had good civics education. They don't know how it's supposed to work. What we found that actually was younger Republicans are more supportive of adherence to the rule of law than our older Republicans. So on those questions like, should the president be able to ignore court decisions, younger people were less likely to say yes to that.
How did that
so that
split?
was interesting.
Okay. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but how did that same question split when it came to older Democrats and younger Democrats? And so you've got the set of Republican, younger and older. And what if anything, did you find when it came to younger Democrats and older Democrats in that same conversation?
It's interesting. I don't think we had enough because Democrats so overwhelmingly agreed with one position on that. You just wouldn't see a lot of difference. Do you know what I mean?
I do.
Whereas within the Republicans, you could really see some differences. And, there were other things, too, where, for example, that same question about those rule of law issues, we looked at it by education level within Republicans.
Okay.
So we said, is there a difference as people move from not having a high school degree, all the way up to having a graduate degree? And the answer was we didn't see much difference. So,
kidding.
Whether you had a lot of formal education or a little, not a big difference. Same thing, we did that. We looked at church attendance, right? I think there's a perception that, very religious Republicans may be willing to kind of see the Constitution kind of rolled over to achieve their goals. Again, we did not see significant differences by the way we asked that question was frequency of church attendance. So it doesn't tell you what denomination, anything like that. But again, no big differences popped out in that. And I thought, again, that was kind of interesting because we go into these things maybe with a lot of perceptions, stereotypes, guesses about where other people are. And some of them, it doesn't look like match up that well. I think a lot of there was a lot more concern about young people and their being kind of pulled into authoritarian discourse on the internet and those kinds of things. I think some of that is real and there are legitimate concerns there. But it was interesting to us to see that basically as you went down the age spectrum from oldest to youngest, there was increasing support for democratic norms, for following the rule of law, et cetera. All the way from the silent generation through the boomers, Gen X, millennials, Gen Z, it kind of just followed that chain. And again, that seemed to matter a lot more than things like education level, church attendance, et cetera. So, and kind of, again, maybe in the opposite way from what most people would have expected.
I can assure you that. I'm sitting here shaking my head like, wow. And so that's the good thing about doing research and surveys and having this engagement, because we do then find that some of our own blind spots can be lightened up a little bit, or some light can be shed on them, because you just said yourself, and you're my man with the PhD. You even said that there is that possibility of being a little bit tainted because we have some predispositions to a way of thinking on that subject. So that's amazing that you were able to get those findings. We're talking with, as we wrap up, Andrew Seligsohn, PhD and president of Public Agenda, one of the great organizations in the country that's really leaning into the importance of civic engagement and being a leader in that space. And so I appreciate you being with us this morning. Did you, by chance, see that in this conversation around the courts and following the rules, following the guidelines, following some historical norms, that, in this bill, this big, beautiful bill, as they're calling it, or this big, ugly bill, or whatever this bill is being referred to as, that Senate Democrats, and this is a little bit of, it's not meant to be partisan, but just looking at the reality, Senate Democrats were able to throw a monkey wrench in the part of the bill that the Republicans were trying to drive through to make it so that the president would not have to essentially follow court rulings, and they wanted to be able to toss out essentially rulings that came from the courts as it relates to the president's actions. And did you see that where they did have some impact on that?
Yeah, and I think it's interesting because that is a case where you're seeing success by the Democrats on an issue where their view does align with the majority of Americans. So, there's some cases where the views that Democrats in Congress are pushing for, only Democrats out there in the public share that view. And that's going to make it, especially when they don't have majorities in either house and they don't hold the presidency, that's an uphill battle. But here was a case where, about a third of Republicans and pretty much all Democrats are on the same side on this. That's a big majority of the country. And so Senate Democrats, I think, were in a stronger position because, they're kind of pushing in the direction of public opinion rather than against it. And, my guess is that we're not the only people who know this. Members of Congress obviously are doing their own surveys, et cetera. And it could be that on some of these issues, there's a little bit softer willingness of Republicans to kind of go all the way down the line when they know that their own voters may be somewhat divided on some of these issues, whereas there are other issues, again, where, the support is really consistent. And I would say that was one of the interesting things here is that when we look at the folks who are supportive of the rule of law and are Republicans, their views about the policy issues and about the president haven't really changed. So these are folks who mostly voted for Trump. They're still supportive of him. They agree with him on the majority of issues. They're just saying we want to make sure we hold the line on respecting the law, adhering to the Constitution.
Well, interestingly, though, it's a strange sort of mix. In that conversation, they want to still support Donald Trump and still are, in the boat with him. At the same time, the things that he's actually doing are pushing, this is where I said earlier, they're pushing that envelope like nobody's business when it comes to just immigration as an example and the use of military, the use of the military in a domestic environment. So that's, by many experts' determination, not just pushing, it's breaking the law. And the manner in which even ICE, quote unquote, officers or whatever, agents are implementing seems to be, not just pushing up against the line, but they've crossed the line. So there seems to be a little, not hypocrisy, but maybe confusion in terms of those who are still supporting him, saying one thing, but letting other things happen, if that makes any sense.
No, I agree with you. And I think, one of the things I try to do a lot is, because I have my own political views, et cetera, I try to think about what would it feel like to be a person who held some very different views from me. And I think one of the issues is, if you think that there's a whole set of policy issues where, like, let's say you're somebody who really believes that it's very, very important to reduce as close to zero as possible the number of undocumented people in the country. If that's a view you hold, you want to see a president come in with that as a focus. You're pleased that is the president's focus, but you're also somebody who believes the law should be followed. I can see that you could be very torn, very conflicted. And if you tend to think that the folks on the other side of the aisle are mostly bad people, then the idea of saying, am I going to join with them to oppose this? That doesn't seem very appealing. And that's one of the reasons I do think it's very important that, even in our individual lives, our interactions with others, I think it's important that we see each other as human beings and as decent human beings who want the best for the country. And so when Democrats are interacting with Republicans, if there are opportunities to talk to them, not scream at them, maybe then when there are these areas of, hey, I'm concerned about the way the president is executing these policies, maybe that can be a conversation about, hey, can we work together to hold the line on the rule of law, even if we disagree about the policy objectives. So I think things we can all do individually, things on this show where you're having rational conversations about issues and not screaming at people. I think that's very important to creating the opportunity for this big majority of people who do care about the rule of law to actually effectively work together to protect it. Again, we can have the disagreements about the policy goals, but trying to create an environment where we're not so divided that folks are saying, you know what, yes, I'm concerned about the rule of law issues, but there's no way I'm going to work with the Democrats on that.
Yeah, and I think right now that's more Republican, and this is a partisan statement by design. There's more Republicans that are acting that way in elected offices than there are Democrats that are acting that way. And some of the frustration is kind of weird where Democratic voters are saying, doggone it, don't work with them. Stop calling them my colleagues on the other side of the aisle. I've been saying that myself. At the same time, we recognize that right now the Democrats don't have the numbers. So getting the numbers is going to be a move in the direction to get back to a point where compromise is a reality, because right now, compromise isn't even on the table. Even though the data says that there are people out there that want it, they're not really acting on it, at least this person's observation. So, wow. Once again, having you with us has been highly enlightening and in some ways inspirational. And I must say that because it does say that we can, if we can figure this out and hold the line long enough to change some of the national numbers, that we might be able to get closer to a little bit more sanity in how people are interacting and how people are working or trying to work together. So Andrew Seligsohn, PhD, president of Public Agenda, thank you for being with us. And I proudly love giving you the nickname of Doc. So I appreciate you being with us this morning.
Well, I'm happy to be your doc for the morning, and whenever you'd like to keep talking, as I said, we'll have some new survey results, so I'd love to rejoin you and keep the conversation going.
Absolutely, we'll do that. Keep me posted. Let me know when that breaks so we can get it out there. Guys, listen, if you want to follow Dr. Seligsohn, go to Public Agenda, and you'll get all the great information you want. And I know that there's some ways that people can get involved in some of your surveys and some of the other work that you guys are doing. Is that correct?
Absolutely, yes. You can check us out online, and we always love to hear from people with ideas or directions they'd like to go or practical work they're doing that we might learn from studying. So publicagenda.org.
Fantastic. Thanks for being with us, Doc. Appreciate you. Have a great rest of the week. We'll talk soon.
All right. Thanks so much. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Yeah, guys. I mean, we're in this fight. We know that. And it's good to have some data that says that, there's some opportunity for consensus. There's an opportunity to still push for compromise. But at the end of the day, that doesn't happen if we're going to run roughshod over and lose respect for the rule of law. Thanks to Professor Seligsohn for being with us this morning. Thanks to Kurt Mullett for being with us, Maggie O'Keefe, Dawn Huckelbridge. Wonderful folks that are in the fight every single day, sleeves rolled up, elbows deep, as we say. And as we also say every day, take a deep breath and make your life count. We look forward to seeing you tomorrow.
Still struggling with gas, bloat, constipation, nausea, or diarrhea? Have you tried eliminating foods but felt no change? It's time to call the tummy whisperer, Renee Barish at Digestive Health Solutions. Renee uses targeted testing to reveal exactly what's happening in your gut. Gut bacteria plays a key role in all your body functions, from cardiovascular regulation to brain function. When the gut is imbalanced, you may experience symptoms that extend beyond the gut, such as anxiety, skin issues, poor sleep, or increased risk for disease. Digestive Health Solution uses advanced testing to identify harmful microbes and evaluate the overall balance of the gut ecosystem. Get insights into your health, digestion, and how your microbiome affects all aspects of your body. Stop suffering. Call Renee now at 847-207-2034 or visit thetummywhisperer.com. That number is 847-207-2034. Let's get you feeling better. The Tummy Whisperer.
Excuse me, miss. Can I ask you a question?
Sure.
Can you recommend a bank that offers a full suite of commercial banking products along with excellent service?
Yes, ABOC.
What about a bank that has been in Chicago for more than 100 years and really understands the local business climate?
ABOC.